BVHC, the frequency.
Good morning, Boulder County. It's Wednesday, May 13th. I'm Shay Castle, and this is The Frequency. And I'm coming to you from my new studio, aka the closet of my new apartment. After 14 years in Boulder, I'm finally living west of Broadway. My location is the only thing that's changed. I'll still be bringing you the news, events, and voices shaping the Boulder Valley every week. A little later, we'll hear from Bonnie Paine, member of Nederland's homegrown heroes Elephant Revival, who just put out her first solo album. Caribou Current editor Jezy interviewed Paine ahead of her May 16th show at the Fox Theater in Boulder, and multimedia editor Tyler Hickman pulled it all together in truly spectacular fashion. But first, the headlines. The man responsible for last year's Pearl Street firebombing in Boulder has received life in prison without parole. Mohammed Solomon pled guilty on more than 100 state counts in the June 1st attack, which injured more than a dozen people and led to the death of 82-year-old Karen Diamond, who later died from her injuries. Solomon still faces 12 federal hate crime charges and the possibility of the death penalty. CBS News reported that Solomon in court expressed a wish that Colorado had the death penalty and suggested he would ask for the death penalty in the federal case. The federal trial is scheduled to begin in Denver on June 1st, exactly 1 year after the attack. Solomon's family, including his now ex-wife and their 5 children, facility for more than 10 months. After a judge ordered their release in April, they were recaptured just days later by ICE, who also attempted to deport them. The federal government is now asking the courts to allow that deportation to proceed, while lawyers for Solomon argue they are witnesses in his federal case and therefore must remain in the country. A recent study from CU Boulder found that increased detention and deportation under ICE has not resulted in better employment for Americans. The study by the nonprofit, nonpartisan National Bureau of Economic Research compared areas with high ICE arrest activity to those without. Regions with high ICE activity had higher unemployment among immigrants and American citizens, specifically U.S.-born men with high school degrees or less. The study found no evidence that employers increased wages or that U.S. workers had more job opportunities after ICE enforcement surges, according to a release from the University of Colorado. One of the study's authors was also quoted in the release as saying, "For every 6 male undocumented workers lost, we found that the labor market also loses 1 male U.S.-born worker as companies scale back on production. Effects are especially pronounced in agriculture, construction, and manufacturing." Read more at the link in our show notes. Extensive mapping of Lafayette Cemetery has been completed, and a decision on whether or not to allow future burials has been postponed. The city discontinued plot sales in 2000, but continued to allow burials through 2025 to families who had already purchased plots. The cemetery was closed to burials in November after human remains were discovered during 2 internments. Ground-penetrating radar was performed to map burial sites at the cemetery. Of 3,504 total graves, mapping identified 2 historical burials in sites previously marked as available. Quote, "The cemetery appears overall organized, with no evidence of stacked or overlapping graves," the report reads. However, the project confirmed previous findings that, quote, "the facility can no longer provide additional burial capacity," according to a publicly available report. The report also estimates there are 750 to 1,000 unmarked graves in Lafayette Cemetery. Quote, "This is common in many historical cemeteries, particularly ones of this age and scale, and ones that have served poorer, immigrant, or minority populations." A sign noting the historic Potter's Field is in place at the cemetery. Council voted to install signage naming all known persons buried in unmarked graves. It is unclear when that will be installed. Only some 200 persons have been identified thus far, according to local historians. Approximately 150 individuals currently own 1 or more plots, with 270 remaining unused plots, according to information provided by the city. Lafayette City Council was set to decide whether or not to permanently discontinue casket burials at the May 5th meeting. That decision was postponed. Under the proposal, cremated remains could still be buried in Lafayette Cemetery.
Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you in the studio. So the last time we spoke was the summer of 2023 for Boulder Weekly, which was amazingly 3 years ago. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
At that time, Elephant Revival was just about to return to Planet Bluegrass. It was about a year after your reunion show there. So what have these last few years been like for you? Can you just kind of catch me up?
It's been a journey. Lots of exploring different musical approaches, which has been fun and interesting. And, the healthy balance of challenge and comfort is always important to feel alive and everything. So yeah, it's been a lot of that. I'm just exploring different music, and I got to record this solo record. So that's been a lot of my focus the last 2.5 years.
Well, that's definitely what we want to talk to you about. You're back with your first solo record, Unseen, which is a beautiful collection of songs that I think any fan of Elephant Revival should be stoked about. And can you tell us a little bit about how this project began to germinate and come together for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time coming. The band Elephant has encouraged me for years to do it because I write a lot of songs. And, and a lot of those, most of them are in Elephant Revival. It's nice. A lot of these have a little bit of a different tonality. So a little more ethereal, building into rocking kind of a vibe. And so they felt like they had a nice home in this solo project. And I was at Gregory Allen Isaacoff is a good old friend of mine. And we were talking because he's heard me. He said, play me a song. And so I played him a song I was working on. He's like, let's go record it right now. And so I was like, all right, yeah, might as well just start. And that kind of cracked the seal to get over the feeling of it has to be this perfect moment when you begin. I mean, it was pretty perfect and beautiful. I love this studio. That got me kind of going with recording. So we went into Gregory's studio and tracked the song. And then he just layered voice after voice and keys and pianos and synthesizers and God noises. And we had a really fun time with it. And then we took that song to Ferncliff Studio, which is a studio that my husband had designed out in Ferncliff, Colorado. And we finished it there with Daniel Sproul helped co-produce. And then he helped with 4 more songs. That place felt like a stone cave with a candlelit kind of old world vibe in there. And then T-Bone Burnett, who I'd been in touch with for a while, recording the rest of the record with him, 5 more songs, which was super fun and a huge honor. Yeah, T-Bone Burnett had sent Elephant a New York Times article years ago. Maybe we were interested in having him produce an Elephant album. And he said, well, write a song about this article. And I typically don't I don't want songs to be too contrived. It's hard for me to write about something specific that somebody's write a song about this. So it took me many, many years to write a song about this article that was so interesting about basically how information is going to be, widely available to everybody. And it's going to be an amazing and beautiful thing, but it's going to be really hard to discern the truth of what's going on. And media is going to become bought by the largest corporations and just going to become another advertisement platform. And how, being a musician will become something that you're just a marketing specialist will become the top musicians and all these things that we're seeing signs of today. And it was a really interesting article and I was certainly inspired by it. So I wrote this song called Phantoms in the Station over the course of the next 10 years. And then I saw T-Bone at Telluride and we were talking and having a good time. And I said, I did write a song about that. So it took me so long. He said, well, send it. And so I recorded it, just a little voice memo in a cabin and sent it to him. And he said, this is great. Let's do this. When can you come out and record? And that was super fun. And then I got to have a bunch of my Colorado musicians fly out with me. And Brittany Haas also out in Nashville hopped on the fiddle, I just love her playing.
Does it feel more vulnerable to release an album under your own name as opposed to as part of a collective? Does it feel like you're putting yourself out there in a different way?
Absolutely. And that's probably why it's taken me 20 years. Yeah, for sure. You are the name, but I still like to have a lot of creative freedom. I started playing music with my sisters, which was very comfortable. And I'm the baby in the family too. So I was a very shy person when I first started with Elephant, Like, I remember when we would do interviews, like Bridget, I would look at her for every question and she would answer for me. And, like, it was very, like, I got to ease into the having people put so much attention on you, which that part is not my favorite, honestly, but the music part is so fun.
Because I imagine on the flip side that there's something quite meaningful about having your name on the record and having your vision come to life in this way. Does it feel gratifying in a different way than working collectively?
Yeah, I think so. It feels, liberating to be able to have a vision and know that you can articulate it, to whatever extent, and then see that come to life in ways that I hear things very vividly in my mind, and then to be able to hear it out loud like that is very satisfying.
I actually wanted to talk about your path to music being through the drums, which I think maybe some people might not expect right away. Can you tell us a little more about those early days, like when you first kind of found your path?
I would say it started with like singing with my mom, or listening to her sing more so, and like singing. I would find like reverberous spots, to sing in since I was really little. When I was 5, we moved to town and across the street from who would become my oldest stepsister. And there was like a tree that you could climb up. My brother climbed up to where her window was, where she was playing the drums. And I was like, this guy Randy Crouch needs a new drummer, who was an old friend of my dad's. And so she ended up becoming his drummer, and we became friends that way. And then she ended up moving into our yard in a bus with her boyfriend, who was the bass player for his band. And they would leave all their instruments set up for rehearsal, and me and my other sisters would go and play on all the instruments. And then we became part of their show at times. They call us the rat nurses because we took care of baby rats that we found.
I'm so glad you told us that.
You should see the t-shirts. My dad made shirts. It was not like a thing that we're particularly proud of, but we ended up playing shows together as the rat nurses, but also known as Randy Crouch's Flying Horse Opera Band. Also a great title. I remember being like 12 for our first show that was on the marquee. There's a Dream Theater in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and it said Randy Crouch live with the rat nurses. And my dad had made these t-shirts with these 3 girls, or rats, dressed in rat nurses outfits, all playing guitar. I played electric guitar back then. And we were just mortified, like, because as a 12-year-old, that's like, but now everybody wears them. I was like, I should sell them at the show, maybe.
Yeah, you said you were searching for names for this project. And I'm hearing some great options right here. So let's go back to the new record a little bit. Obviously, the songs in this collection are all quite different, but is there a through line connecting them in your mind? Like, are there any overarching themes you're exploring on this record? Any glue that in your mind holds them together?
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty all over the place in some ways. And I was wondering if they're all too different. But once I feel like I found a cool order for them to go into, where it feels kind of like a journey, where there's like a mysterious landscape of sounds almost like a storm is brewing to introduce it, and then it eases into more groove. I would say the unseen, the title, partly why I chose that title also, again, is that there is a reoccurring theme of like this thing that we're all a part of, and the most magnificent unseeable forces that move our bodies around and like make us feel the feelings and do things and make the wind blow. And it was like a homage to whatever you want to call that beautiful thing that we're all inextricable from.
I imagine you've seen a lot of changes in the years since here in Colorado. I imagine a lot is different now compared to 2004. Can you speak to that a little bit, maybe specifically in regard to the music scene here? What has changed or maybe not changed in the decades since?
Well, I would say one of the things that was so beautiful and that I was so excited about when I first came here was the live music and the opportunity to play not on stage also, so that you could have that developing time and just like that freedom of making music together. There were so many jams. If there was a gathering, there was bound to be people playing music together, which I just love that. And I wish for that for more people. because I don't know that I would have ever developed the way that I did on instruments if I didn't have off of the stage opportunities, and I see kids, I would go to recitals and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, this is a different tone whenever you're playing music and you're performing right off the bat versus getting to have those intimate moments where you're like sitting around the fire and passing a guitar around. Like I like to play pass the guitar because it makes everybody kind of come out of their shell, and you're not allowed to pass it without you have to at least play like one note or two notes or something. And it like helps. It's just fun to hear that part of people, even if they've never played a guitar before. Like I'd rather do that than chit chat all day. Like I hope that there is more forms of that come back for everybody's sake. Cause I just think it feels so meaningful, and it's like a fun opportunity you can try out a different instrument and get over the fear, like rather than having to like play it alone your whole life and then you're on stage, or you're at rehearsal with the idea of being on stage. Like it was a beautiful thing that I loved about here when I came here.
So when you look back on those early days of making music, when you were first kind of cutting your teeth with the band and you compare it to where you are now, what goes through your mind when you think about that journey? Like, did you ever imagine you'd be in this position?
Well, I remember when I was, I think 14 or something, my mom for my birthday got me an astrological reading she like sent in the time that I was born. And it was like, will most likely be, or very visual art or visually artistic, and will most likely be a singer. And I was like, Mom, like, no way am I singing in front of people. Like this thing is so off. Like, it was really like pretty spot on in every other way. And I was like, this is because I remember being really excited about reading it and then being like, what? Like, yeah, right. Because that just seemed like impossible. I was so shy that I would like when you had to say here in class, I would like literally puke in my mouth to have to say here. I hated it so much. So I would have never dreamed that I would be so comfortable with singing now and have gotten to sing for so many folks. And I feel pretty fearless when music is happening now. The in-between songs is still like, can be awkward, but music is like something that it instantly connects us. And so you just like, it takes for me anyways, that's been a really lovely part of it. So yeah. And then to play like with my sisters, we played electric guitar at first, and then that felt too in the front. And the guy, Randy Crouch, would just be like solo out of nowhere. And it just scared the crap out of me. And so I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. So I switched to congos and bongos, and then I would have this whole like fortress I could hide behind. And just, I didn't have to know the chords. They weren't going to give me a guitar solo, which is, if they did give me a solo, it was just percussion. I didn't have to know the right notes. And then my sisters and I started a band with James Townsend called Mighty Kind. I started singing in that band with James and writing songs. And he's the one who taught me how to play musical saw and got me my first musical saw, which was so fun. It was a very eclectic band. He had learned from Neutral Milk Hotel and was pretty inspired by that band. So there are some tones of that and like Modest Mouse. So it was very like a rock band. And then I met some members of Elephant Revival, Bridget and Dango and Daniel, and I started playing with them, and then we would open up for the band with my sisters. And so yeah, it was like a nice journey into that. And then to be able to play Red Rocks, headline Red Rocks a few times was a huge honor.
Anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
The album will be out on May 8th, which is going to be fun. And then there's the show at the Fox Theater on May 16th. And I'm really excited for the musicians that are going to surprise guest there. And Hermana is opening in their really cool duo, sing in Portuguese and Spanish. And they're really good friends of mine. We're part of a band called Leyline. So I'm excited for that. And David Brown's going to play guitar from Rising Appalachia. A lot of surprises. I just won't say any more than that, but a lot of fun. Folks will be there.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Under the clover, I felt it over this red and white eye. skin that covers into the wild. Our living's lover, a fitful giving when turning over.